Hi everyone. Today video is on NgRx data. So we are going to implement a Angular sample application that going to use state management by using the NgRx data library, which is version 12. Okay. So what is NgRx data? So in general, Angular application using NgRx store affects entity libraries. So like data, NgRx also provides like store, effects, and entity libraries. Okay, so using those libraries made us to write huge number of actions, reducers, effects, and selectors. And one more thing, if you are learning the NGRS data, you should have prior knowledge on Angular store. Then you know what is actions, reducers, effects, and selectors. Why they are going to lead to writing huge lines of code. Okay. So in traditional way, if you want to maintain state means we have to use NgRx store, okay, and effects and entity libraries, okay. In that way, if we start our coding, we are we are dive into creating a n number of files for each API call, like individual reducers, individual effects, individual selectors. Okay, there is a huge line of code that we are going to end up by writing. Okay, so parenting model. So it lead to lot of repetitive code and difficult to maintain and test. Okay, so using the traditional way, we have to write huge amount of code. Okay, but using NGRS data, we can reduce our code to very little, despite of having a large number of entity models in our application. Okay, so entity model nothing but represents the API response model. Okay, if you have n number of API endpoints also that we are consuming into our Angular application using NGRX data, we can reduce the lot of very huge amount of code when compared to writing in traditional standard way, that is NGRX store. Okay, so the NGRX data is an abstraction over the store. So NGRX data is actually built on top of the store effects and entity libraries only. Okay, so it's like a wrapper, which makes us to uh, cut down our huge amount of code that we have to write in a traditional way. Okay, so NGRX data is the abstraction over the store, effects, and entity that radically reduces the amount of code that we have to write. Okay, so that is the main advantage of the NGRX data. Okay, so it is very simple and very with the little amount of lines of code, we can achieve our state management in our Angular application. Okay, so by gaining this abstraction benefit, we are going to lose our interaction with NGRX libraries. So that means since it is an overlay and it gives all predefined methods, selectors and dispatchers. So because of this, we are going to lose control over the NGRX data directly, right? We are going to use only our predefined methods. Okay, that is the disadvantages of NGRX data. Okay, so basically NGRX data is very good for if your application is involving in more number of CRUD operations. Okay, in that case, it will minimize your code very less. Okay, and one more thing, we can use NGRX data implementation along with the NGRX store. That means we can write our custom action methods like in NGRX store. We can write both in our same application. Okay, see, I have mentioned one point, right? NGRX data is an abstraction over NGRX store, entity, and effects. Means it's directly depend upon all these store and entity and effects libraries. Okay, so that means uh, if your application only want to work with NGRX data, but we should install all these libraries as well to work with NGRX data. Okay, so this is a NGRX store flow when we are using NgRx data. So the entire thing in this gray area is going to be happen automatically by the NgRx data. Okay. So if we use the NgRx store, all these content we must be implemented manually. Every file like action file, reducer file, selector file, all these files are we have to maintain. But all these files are automatically uh, activated and functioned by using the NgRx data. Okay, so let's understand how the flow happening while using the NgRx data. Okay, so component uh, to fetch the data from the store, it should invoke an action. So in NgRx data component, what it will do means it will invoke the entity actions. Everything this gray area is implicitly happening. Nothing we have to write from our own. Okay. So component invokes entity action. So here entity action can do two things. Either it can call HTTP API, okay, HTTP API request, okay. Once the response is success, that response will invoke another new action method, and that action method will pushes the data into the reducers. So reducers, entity reducers. So store entity reducers are nothing but pure functions that they just update the entity collections in the store. Okay, so here entity collection is nothing but for suppose I am consuming the API like products. Okay, so my response object is product. So NGRX data store how it will maintain means it's maintain product as a collection like products. Yes, with plural sense. That is called entity collection. So for each entity, there will be a collection maintained in the store. Okay. So these entity reducers are, communicate with that entity collections. Here you can see entity collections. Entity reducers are communicate with the entity collections where our application contains the data. Okay. So once the action method passes the data from the response to entity reducers push them into the entity collections. Okay. So by using the selectors from the entity collections, components can retrieve the data. So this is the flow. What it is like, let's again go through it. Component invokes entity action. Entity action either directly communicate with the entity reducer or communicate with the HTTP request API. So once the request API is invoked, it will return the data. So once the response is got, again new action method will be triggered. That action method going to communicate with the entity reducer. That entity reducer pushes data into the entity collection. So selectors can feel the change in the state. So once the change happen in the entity collection, automatically collections updates the data into the components. Okay, that is the flow. Okay. So here you can see the points of this flow. Okay. Using NGRX, we never contact store directly. I have mentioned it. All these happens behind the scenes, taken by care by the NGRX data. Okay. Every store operation is carried out by the NGRX store implicitly. Implicitly, store actions will be carried out. So here our main point of contact is entity collection service. So this is code point of view. So using the entity collection service, this is a class provided by the NGRX data. So using this class, we have to communicate. So implicitly, the methods are the predefined properties inside of this entity collection service. When we use inside of the component, appropriate action methods or reducers or selectors get invoked. Okay. So using entity collection for each entity can invoke a API call. I have mentioned, right? So entity collection, what it will do, it will implicitly trigger a entity action based on these methods like a get, add, delete. See, all these CRUD operations are available in the entity collection service class that provided by the entity data source. So from our Angular component, we need to invoke any one method. So any one method means these methods, predefined methods from the entity collection service. Then internally entity action gets invoked. See, from this point, our flow will be so. whenever in my component, what I will do, I will inject entity collection service and call something like entity get all method. So once this code executed, what will happen means internally entity action gets triggered. Entity action means this one. Entity action gets triggered. Okay, and raises a action method like to involve the API call based on our entity model. So based on the entity model, API call will be triggered. So entity model is nothing but the response model. Okay. So how that entity model will uh, invoke the API, we will understand when we jump into the coding. Okay. So think like that action method triggered and it invoke the API call. Okay. On API success, entity action raises a new action method and invokes the entity collection reducers. See, so once the response is successful, a new entity action will be raised and it invokes the entity reducers. Okay. So from the entity collection reducers, appropriate reducers gets invoked and updates the data store. So it is also a collection of reducers it will contain. So from those collection, the appropriate reducer will be invoked and data will be passed to the entity collection in the store. Okay. So on state changes, selectors will fetch the data from into the Angular component from the store. See, this is the point. So once the updated data is updated in the store, automatically selectors will listen for the changes and those changes were pulled from the store and updated into the Angular component. Okay, so that is the flow behind the scenes happens in the entity collection store. Okay, so now let's see. This is how NgRx data will work. In normal NgRx store library, if you use these layers in this gray area, everything should be done by us manually, like creating an action method, creating a reducer, creating a store state, creating selectors. Everything is we have to done manually. But using NgRx data, only using entity collection service. Okay, that we are going to inject in our components. Using that, we can do all our operations that are required for our application. Okay, so let's jump into creating the Angular application. So this is my Angular CLI command like ng new, and this is my project name. Okay, let's create the project. So one more thing, please make sure to select the routing enabled because I am going to use lazy loading implementation. Okay, I'm going to create a module and I want to load that module lazy load. So for that, I am selecting Angular routing, enable Angular routing. So here is our Angular project. Okay, I'm using Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, so if you go here, our Angular application is latest version Angular 12. Okay. So first what I will do, I am going to implement lazy loading. Okay. So first let's implement the lazy loading. For that, let me create a module. So for creating module, okay, first let's me create a module. Okay, like shop module. For that, I will use commands like ng generate shop. Okay, I also want along with shop module, I want routing module as well. Okay, so let's run it and I need to specify module here. Ng G for generate and module I want to create. Next thing is name of my module and I need routing file as well for my module. Okay, let's run the command. Okay, here you can see shop folder and here inside of it you can find two files like ng module, routing module and normal module. Okay, so now let me create a component file. Okay, so I want to create a products. Okay, why I want to create products means let me show my API that I am going to consume in my application. So here is my products APIs like get, post, create, and delete. So I have created a sample products API that these APIs I am going to use it in our Angular application. Okay. So because of that, I am going to create a component like products. Okay. To create components like products, ng generate component shop, which I want to create inside of the shop module. So my component should be products. Okay. See, now if you go here inside of shop, we have products component files like CSS, HTML, and TS file. Okay. So now what I will do, go to shop routing module. Okay. Here uh, let's define the route. So what I will do, a path empty and a component. I want products component. Okay. And go to shop module, and here already it is automatically imported into the shop module. Okay. Now go to main module of our application, that is app routing module. Okay. So here we need to specify our module loading. So here I can specify path, okay, empty. Instead of directly loading component, here we need to specify our module for lazy loading. Okay, for that we have property like load children. Okay, so here we'll import, okay, shop and shop module. Okay, and then the module type. Okay, that's it. We are done with implementing lazy loading, and let's go to app HTML file, app component HTML file, and let's remove all the existing code. Okay, only leave router outlet. Okay, now if I go to our product HTML, component HTML, there is a sample HTML tag, p tag with the product source. So if I run my application and navigate to our domain, we should see this by lazily loading. Okay, so let's run our application. Start 4200. See, products is loading, and if you inspect and go to networks and check for all, and if you reload again, here you can see your lazy loading JS file. So that says our lazy loading implementation is successful. Okay, so now let's install Bootstrap into our application. Okay, I want to use Bootstrap styling. So for that, npm install Bootstrap. Run the command. Okay, seems like package installed successfully. Let's cross verify in package.json file. Okay, so here you can see Bootstrap. Okay, now in Angular JSON file, we need to configure Bootstrap CSS here, styles, and script file we need to configure. Okay, let's configure them. Let's first configure styles file. So this is the path for our Bootstrap CSS file. Now let's configure the JS file. Okay, so you need to access the path from the node module. Okay, so next thing is, let me add in app.component file, let's add some Bootstrap navigation menu. Okay, this is my Bootstrap menu and my heading is like shopping. So let's rerun the application. So like this our page looks like, okay, with the Bootstrap menu. Now let's install our NgRx data. Okay, I have mentioned already. NgRx data depends upon NgRx store, NgRx entity, NgRx effects. So we must install all these three before installing the NgRx data. Okay, so let's jump into install all these four libraries. So to install, let's go to ngrx.io docs. Okay, go to states and NgRx store, and in the installation, you can find the command. So this is for NgRx store. Okay, so let's install NgRx store. Okay, here is the command. Let's install it. So our store installed successfully. Let's cross verify it. Go to package.json, and here you can see NgRx store latest version. Okay, 12. Okay, so now what I will do, go to app module. Okay, and in the imports, let's import the store module. Okay, register the store module for route, and here I can specify empty object. Okay, see store module that is loaded from the NgRx store. Okay, so next thing is let's install NgRx effects. Okay, so NgRx effects, you can go to @NgRx effects and go to installation and check for the install command. Okay, let's install the NgRx effects. Okay, effects package has been successfully installed. So let's import the effects module as well into the imports. Okay, so effects module for route. Okay, you can specify empty array here. Okay, so next thing is entities. So to install entities, here you can see NgRx entity and go to installation, copy the command. Okay, let's install it. And now finally let's install the NgRx data. Okay, so for NgRx data, you can see another menu and go to data and installation and copy it. So our module is installed successfully. Let's check in package.json. Okay, here is our entity data. Okay, here we have successfully installed all our four. So let's add the module for entity data. Entity data module. Okay, for route, and you can pass empty object. Okay, here one more thing you need to remember. Order is mandatory. Entity data model should always come after these two modules. Okay, and next one more optional package let's install, that is nothing but dev tools, Redux Div Tool, that is for Chrome extension. Okay, so by that we can check each step how the internally reducers and actions are triggered. Okay, so let's install the dev tool as well. So for that, go to state and go to store dev tool. Okay, and go here and install it. If you want to use it, you need to have a Redux extension. Okay, that is nothing but the Chrome extension. Okay, don't forget, we should have this one. So after installing, let's configure its module as well. To do that, go here and go for instrumentation. In overview, what we will do here, copy the store module instrumentation, import. Okay, let's paste it over here. and import the store module as well. Okay, and the environmental variable. Okay, so that's it about the configuration, and let's jump into using the implementing our NgRx data store module. Okay, I have mentioned these are my APIs, right? So what type of response I am going to get? I am going to get the products response like this, right? So let's create a response model in our uh, application. Okay, so let's close all of them. So now inside of the products, let's create a model. Okay, so to do that, ng and I will specify like class. Okay, and shop, inside of shop products. Okay, inside of products dot model. Okay, let's specify flat so that I can avoid creating new folder name like products.model. Okay, I want directly create this TS file into this product folder. Okay, so let's run this command. Okay, sorry for a class. Here I am creating class, right? No need to use the flat command. It will directly create where I specifies. But remaining like modules or services, we need to have the flat flag. Okay, so now if you observe here, we have product.model.ts. So let's rename it. Okay, so this is my response model. Let's make it interface. Okay, so now what I will do, let's copy these properties. So finally, our response model looks like this. Okay, so NgRx data provides one of the key thing, that is entity metadata. So what is this entity metadata? So NgRx data library maintains a cache or entity collection data in the NgRx store. So I have mentioned, right, inside store it will have entity collection, right? So all those collections and entities, they contain with metadata. So whatever our store has to maintain the collection, those entities we need to register inside of the entity metadata. Okay. So here if you observe sample, here you can see export constant shop entity data. This is my constant name. It's inherit entity metadata map. Okay, that's loads from NgRx data. See here. So here what happened means, inside of entity metadata map, we need to register our all entities so that store can maintain entity collection. Okay. So entity collection. So here I have registered one entity name like product, any name. You can specify any name that should be meaningful with your entity. Okay, response model. Okay, this name, whatever we are going to have, sorry, this product, for example, if you observe product, so this is the key, a key for communicating me with my entity collection in the store. Okay, so this is the key thing. Okay, so based on this name only, NgRx data automatically generates the API URL also. Okay, so by default, it will generate the API URL also, NgRx data. Okay, anyway, we are going to override them, that we are going to understand in upcoming step. So you can specify the name and you can give empty object only, no properties, nothing given also fine. But your model should have the product model that we are going to map with this product should contain primary key. Okay, if my let's go to our response model. So, product ID as my primary key. Okay. Entity metadata map. If model contains ID, property like ID, it can identify and treat it as a primary key automatically. Other than that, we need to register explicitly. So I don't have ID, right? I have product ID as my primary key. I don't have ID as my primary key. So I need to specify explicitly. To specify explicitly inside of the products object, we can specify select ID, and to that we can assign anonymous function, and from there we can return the property name which we want to treat it as a primary key. Okay, so this is an optional line. If you have ID property in your response model, then our NgRx data automatically treats, because in a entity collection it is maintaining entities, right? Every entity should contain primary key. That is the mandatory functionality. Okay, for the using the NgRx data. Okay, so like these products, I can specify n number of model types here, like orders, customers. Okay, everything you can register here. Then only they are going to allocate the entity collection space in the entity store. Okay, along with selected ID, there are few optional parameters. So we can specify like a filter function method and a sort compare method you can add. Okay, so this is how entity metadata map will work. So all the entities of our application that going to use the NgRx data store should be registered in the entity metadata. Okay. So from the code perspective view, it should be mapped inside of the entity metadata map. Okay. So now let's create a entity map file for my shop module. Okay. I want a entity metadata model for my shop module. For that, what I will do, I will use a command like ng generate admin class and shop. Here I need to specify my metadata model. So what I will do, shop entity metadata. Okay. So let's run the command. Okay. So here is my module. So here no need to have a class. So in this file, we need to register all our modules into the, sorry, all our entities of my shop module. Since I have only product, right? So I will create the product only here. Okay. So export constant and name like shop entity meta data. Okay. And it should inherit entity metadata map. Okay, that stores from the NgRx data. Okay, here I will name like my product entity name like product. See here you can specify any name, but it should be meaningful. That is the recommended way. Okay, and object. Okay, since I don't have ID property directly, right? So it cannot recognize. So I need to should be like this. Okay, now it should show the properties. So these are all the default properties for the each entity it will provide. Okay, from this I want to use selected ID. See, that is an optional property. So here what I will do, product. So my original model type is product model, right? So here I am assigning a anonymous object and I am specifying product ID is my primary key. Okay. So that's it about the entity mapping. So if you have something like orders in future, you can register here. Like customers can register like this, every entity. Okay. And one of the main thing is name of the entity. By default, it will take this name. If you want to specify explicitly, you can specify here entity name. Okay. I want to take here from directly. Okay. So And one more thing, based on this entity only, automatically API calls also generated. So while generating API URLs, it will take this name as plural one. That means like http your domain.com slash API slash products. That is the URL that going to be automatically generated by the NgRx data. Okay. So if you specify here singular, it will generate plural URL. Okay. So keeping that apart, so we are done with the entity metadata, but we need to register it. So to register it in a lazy loading approach, what we have to do? Go to our shop module. Okay. So here let's create the constructor. Okay. Here we need to import like PDF entity definition service. Okay, you need to import this one that's loads from NgRx data. Okay, let's name this also like that only, entity of service. Okay, now I can register my entity map. So to do register, we will have register metadata map. Okay, here I need to register this constant entity map constant. Okay, so register it. So that's it. So what we have did, we just created the entity map for my module. Okay, so each module you will have entity metadata you have to create, and like this only you have to register. Okay, so each module contains their own respective models only. Okay, so if you don't, if you are not using lazy loading, in that case what you have to do means these entity map data should be created in app fault only directly, and you need to pass the metadata into the entity model definition. Okay, so if you are not using lazy loading in that case. Okay, so let's run and check any issues are coming or not. Okay, so some error happened. Let's check what's that error. Mhm. So we need to import the HTTP client module as well. Okay, so in app module, what you will do, you have to import because entity module directly uses the HTTP client. Okay, so here let's import HTTP client module. Okay, so on save again and check now. See, now it is working. So all our configurations are perfect. Okay, so now I have shown you, right, this is my API. So I want all my APIs. Okay, get all my data products. So if I run, I am getting these data from my database. Okay, collection I want to render here in a Bootstrap table. Okay, so for that, let's go to my products component. Okay, so now everything will be actions, reducers, everything will be automatically done by the NgRx data I have said, right? So how to communicate with? Okay, so to communicate with all those things, we need to inject the entity collection service. So what is this? An entity collection service. So entity collection service is a main tool for the NgRx data. So this is the core feature or core entity class, Angular class of the NgRx data to handle the dispatchers and the selectors that manages the entity collection cached in the NgRx store. Okay, so whatever data that we are going to store in the data, we can handle or invoke or consume by using the entity collection service only. Okay, so entity collection service can handle two kind of features like dispatcher and another one is selector. So this dispatcher feature is a command method that dispatches the entity action. So this is nothing but a commands that are going to invoke the NgRx store actions. Okay, so these dispatcher commands can update the store directly or invoke the HTTP call. So these dispatches are nothing but the methods, predefined methods. When we invoke those methods, automatically actions get be invoked. So once action is invoked, that going to trigger the API call. So once the response is successful from the API call, another new action will be triggered in the action, and that action method going to reduce invoke the entity collection reduces, and the entity collection reduces automatically updated into the entity collection in the store. Okay, so that is the dispatcher. Dispatcher contains default methods that are like get all, add, update, delete. All those methods, when we use them implicitly, there are action methods get invoked indirectly. Okay, so that is the meaning of the dispatchers. Next thing is selectors. So these selector properties are nothing but to get the data from the store. So there are selectors like entity dollar. That is one selector provided by the entity collection. Under loaded, so dollar, that represents whether the data is loaded or not, or loading, still loading or not. So those kind of few selectors are provided by the entity collection service. Okay, so this is entity collection service is the key to um, communicate or manage with the NGRX data. So let's inject the entity collection into our component, products component. Okay, so to do that, it provides entity collection store. Okay, so let's entity collection service factory. Yes, not store, service factory, service factory. Okay, so from this factory we can generate entity collection. Okay, so what I will do, I will create a variable like product service. Okay, and its type should be entity collection service type. Okay, not service based, service type. Okay, let's remove service based. Okay, I have mentioned right, we have to use in collection service. So here I need to specify my model name. My model name is product model. Okay, so now this dot product service equal to entity collection factory dot create. Okay, and specify the product model, and here I need to specify the name of my entity. See, I have mentioned entity name always plays a crucial part. So let's go to entity class, and here name is product, right? Copy that and paste it here. So this factory will generate a entity collection service of type products model. Okay, so from this entity collection you can observe. So if you go to definition, you can see here, see like dispatchers, selectors. From these we are going to get the dispatchers and selectors I have shown right previously. All these are here. Okay, so entity collection is the core component to do anything in my application. So now I want to load all the data. So for that it will provide the API class, this entity server collection, that is like, so in NGRX what I will do, this dot product service dot get all. See, these are all the default methods here. See, it will dispatch a action to query the remote storage for all entities and merge the queried entities into the cached collection. Okay, so it's going to invoke the what I can say, a action method implicitly. Okay, once the data is come, so now let's check API is invoking or not automatically. Okay, so let's run our application. So let's check now. So go to network calls. and select hexhr and reload. See here, products. I have mentioned, right? Our name, our entity name is product. It will use plural name and generates the API. So this is the API automatically generated by the NgRx data, right? So, but this is not my domain, so it won't work. That is why it is throwing 404 not found. So now I need to give my original appropriate URL. So to do that, we need to use a default HTTP URL generator. Okay, so it is for entire application. It is not for specific module. So what I will do, I want to create a class in service in it is a service generally. Okay, implementing a default URL generator means. Okay, so I want to create it in the app folder only. So for that, what I will do, ng service. Okay, so where I want to create in app only, right? So custom URL generator. I don't want to create any folder. So what I will do, I will use flat flag. Okay, now run it. So here in the app folder, you can see custom services generated. Okay, so now it should extend. Okay, default something like URL HTTP URL generator. Okay, it should generate like this. Okay, should extend this default HTTP URL generator that loads from the NgRx data. Here you can see. Okay, and the constructor should have pluralizers. Okay, my pluralizer, type of pluralizer. Okay, and it should be passed to the base. Sorry, not base, it is super, right? I can pass my pluralizer. Okay, now here what we have to do means, here we need to override this method. Okay, this get URL source methods. Okay, let's override it. It should be protected and import the namespace. Okay, so now I can get all resource URL object like resource URL equal to this dot known HTTP URLs, and I can just pass the entity name. Okay, so it will gives me the resource URL names for nothing but these auto generated URLs for the specific name. Okay, so now here what I will do, if entity name products, let's copy. So let's copy the URL from my Swagger. So one thing you need to remember, this approach, this URL only used for everything. Like if I minimize this one, create, delete everything. Okay, so that is the standard like web APIs. Like one controller can contains only like one get, one post, one create, one delete. So in those standards, this URL generator functionality will works, but there are times when there is something like product slash all my data, something like that, your custom URL will be there. For those URLs, this approach won't work. So if you want to do like those APIs, I will tell what we have to do in the end of this video. Okay. For now, I am just following the standard convention way for implementing all my CRUD operations. Okay. So the product. So then constant URL equal to, I will paste here. Okay. So resource URL equal to entity resource URL equal to URL and a collection resource URL equal to URL. So finally we need to register the overridden one. So to do that, we need to call this dot registered HTTP URLs. Okay. Okay. We need to register. I have overriding for name only, like that you need to override for your name. Okay. Next thing. Finally, if not matching, return our resource. Okay, that's it. Our customization of the URL. So what we are doing, based on the name of our entity type, we are assigning the URL. Okay, now I need to go to app module and register this service provider like HTTP URL generator. For that to use class we have defined, that is custom URL generated service. Okay, so if you observe this HTTP generator, it loads from NgRx data. Okay, I think we are good. Let's run the application. Okay, now let's inspect element and go to Redux. Okay, so let's reload again and go to network call. See, now product is successful. My own API is coming. Port number you can see different from the localhost. Okay, and here it is also giving some response like products. Okay, and go to Redux. You can see here get all query action method. See, you can see right here something like NgRx store is initialized, something some effect store reduces all are initialized. From here you can see this is an action, store action, but we never called store action in our code. What we did the product component, we simply call this method only. So this method first invokes the products name of, it will use our name of our entity. Okay, product, and at the rate NgRx data query all. Query all represents get all method. For suppose if I comment this, you won't see that action method triggered. So to test that, save our application. Okay, see, it is not invoked. You can observe, right? It is not invoked. If I revert it and means enabled it, see, it is invoked. The first action method invoking the API call. Second action method is successful response. So here it is going to data into the store. So if you go here in the state, see, it will caching our data, entity products, all products. And you observe it is taking our product IDs as its ID key. This is very important for the Redux. That is the reason for it should have a primary key. So it will store all the primary key values and it can easily filter. And here you can see entity name, it says generated. and you can see some additional parameters like loaded, API is loaded, successful. Everything is maintained in the state. Okay, see, all the data is stored in the state. Okay, what I have said, Angular component uses the some of the predefined methods. So predefined method is nothing but get all. So get all automatically calls the action method. See, action method. That action method is nothing but first action method, query all. Okay, action method going to invoke the API. So on successful return of the response, it will going to generate action method like success. So that is nothing but this one, query all success. So like this, everything is under the hood, on indirectly on backend taking place. But in code side, very lightweight, very simple way. Just methods we called, and like reducers, triggering reducer, state maintenance, everything taken care by the NgRx data. Okay, and it is ultimately storing the data into the entity cache. Okay, so now I want to bind the data to them. My Bootstrap, I want to add a table and I want to bind it. So to load the all the data, okay, from the store, what we have to do means we need to use the selector. So that selector is like, let me create an observable variable like all products, observable variable of type products model array. Okay, this start all products equal to this start product service. Product service is nothing but NT collection. I have said NT collection will contain dispatches and selectors, right? Now this is comes under dispatcher. Now we need to use one of the selector, that is nothing but dot entities. See, it is going to return the observable of products model. So this is going to get the data from here. Okay. So now let's bind this data into the HTML. So go to products HTML. Here let's bind the data. Okay. So I have already saved some code snippet to save some time. So let me copy paste that code snippet here. Okay, this is my HTML snippet, just a table, bootstrap table. Here you can see I am using my observable variable. Since it is a observable variable, we should use pipe pacing. When our data is there, it will automatically going to bind here. Okay, so nothing special here. Small bootstrap table. If you want, you can type. I'm just scrolling slowly. You can pause video and you can type the HTML tags. Okay, so let's run and check the output. See, data is binded automatically. Okay, next thing is we are going to see about the read operation. Okay, so to do that, let's add a button. So to do that, what I will do here, let's add some bootstrap button. Okay, and let's add products. This is my button. Let's check the output. So what I will do, let me wrap it inside of the row for better UI. So let's copy the button and remove this one and just maintain margin top 2 and let's have margin top 1. So let's check again output. Okay, and the button is bigger, right? Let's resize it. What I will do, let's create a column. Okay, and move our button inside of it, and let's add this text center to this one. Alt F. Now somewhat better, right? So now on clicking this button, I want to open a Bootstrap model pop-up. Okay, so to do that, let's go to bootstrap.com. Okay, this is Bootstrap 5. So let's go to docs. In the components, okay, what I will do, go to model. Okay, so from here, let's copy this model, HTML. Okay, and paste it over here. And we don't want this button, and I want ID like products model. Okay, so first let's make it operatable, like opening and closing. So to do that, we need to create the instance of the product model. So what I will do, create product model, and I will use any. Okay, and we can use JavaScript to creating the instance of the model. Okay, so what I will do, let's copy this and paste here. Nothing, just creating the model. I need to get it from Windows. So what I will do, where, so it is going to give me window variable. So now what I can do, window dot. Okay, Bootstrap instance will get in window dot. If you have any doubt, go here console and you can type Bootstrap. See, Bootstrap instance is already available in window. Okay, so now here we need to specify ID. So my ID is product model. Okay, so let's specify it. And my product variable I want to maintain is product model. So assign to that, I need this where this dot. Okay, so instance of the Bootstrap is assigned on okay, on component is rendered. So now what I will do, I want to open it. So open product model, it to be small, and here what I will do, this dot product model dot show. Okay, this is going to open the product model if everything is good. So let's add it to the our component. Okay, so here is our add button here, right? So let's register the click event. Okay, and now check the output. Okay, once reload, click on the add button. Okay, we are good. So it is coming. Okay, pop-up is coming. I'm closing, it will close. So now what I will do, I'm going to add a form inside of this model, and so that I can read that data and I can save it to the API. Okay, but to do that, mm, I want to use this same model pop for both add or update. Okay, so to do that, we have to maintain some ID to know whether it is add or update. So here pass some ID 0 for adding. Okay, so here I can product ID number. Okay, I can write logic for update and create based on the product ID value. So if it equal to 0, it is like add. If it is not equal to 0, it is like update. Okay. So I want to have a dynamic title for my product model. So product model title. Okay. String empty initially. So for create, my product model title will be add a new product. Okay, this is the title. Okay, now let's add the form. Okay, in the my model. Okay, so to do that, so let's go to my product model. Product model. So I'm having 4 models. That means I need 4 properties. Okay, so go to Bootstrap. In the Bootstrap, go to forms. Okay, and controls. Let's have this one, single form. Okay, go to my product HTML. So inside of the body, let's have product. Okay, I want totally 3, 4. 1 is already added. 2, 3, 4. Model. So first field is name. So here our first field. Let's make it text and product name. Okay, I don't want any placeholder. I will use label itself. And okay, ID is like txt name. So let's use for variable. Okay. Next thing is manufacturer. Okay. So for manufacturer, let's okay. And it type should be text. I don't want any placeholders. Let's add manufacturer only. Txt. And let's have it for label. Okay. Next field, that is description. Let's have it text. Description. Description. Txt. Txt. Remove the placeholder. Next thing is price. So let's make heading price. Text. Remove placeholder. Txt price. And we should maintain our product ID as hidden variable. Okay. So what I will do here, input type equal to hidden equal to pro ID. Okay, I think that's good enough. Let's check the output. And also here I need to specify the dynamic title, right? And what is my property? Product model. Okay, let's check the output. Okay, we are good. We are getting all the fields and one extra field. Let's remove that email address. So where it is? I don't want this div. So let's save. Okay, we are good. And here you can see the title as well. So what I will do in the component, let's create the form variable. Okay. So what I will do, product form, and its type is product model. Okay, let's have some initial value. Description like empty, manufacturer empty, name empty, price like 0, product ID 0. Okay, so this is my form model, and what I will do, I am going to use same thing here as well, and I can specify this dot. I no need this. Okay, so here rewriting because so that it will clear the fields once we close and open again. Okay, so form, now I need to bind it to my form. So to do that, I will use template binding. Okay, like ng model. So ng model, copy that one. Okay, now specify the names like name, property names, and here I can paste, and I can copy this, paste here with a dot. Okay, so let's copy again and bind here for description, moldy. Let's correct the spelling, model. Okay, so for the price dot price, I think we are good. Okay, so I have enabled form binding. Now I need to save it to the server and then save it to my store as well. So to do that, I will create a one more new method like save or update. Save or update. Okay, so here what they will do, this dot product service. Product service is nothing but our empty collection. Here you can have method like add. This is going to invoke the add entity. Okay, so to this I need to pass my product, that is product model, product form. Directly I can pass. Okay, so here what I will do, this dot subscribe. After everything, what I can do, I simply this dot product model dot hide. Okay, and I have to use this method for both save and update, right? So what I will do, this dot I will use product form variable and I will use product ID. equal to 0, that represents new record. Okay, so let's copy these. Okay, so I hope this should work. See here, one more predefined dispatcher of an entity collection, that is add. Okay, so let's save and check the results how it will work. Okay, so previously we have used get all. So get all invoked some action methods indirectly. Now we are using add. So this also invokes some action methods indirectly. So let's check them in the output. Okay, so go to our output. Okay, we need to import form module since we are using ng module, right? So what I will do, go to app module. Can specify it in my shop module itself. I hope this can. Okay, let's check whether it is compiling or not. So it is successful now. Okay, let's register the save or update method. Go to product component, save or update, and go to my HTML. And here for save changes button, what I will do, click. Okay, and registered the method. Okay, now save again, reload again the page, add ice cream, Amul, cool, some description, $100. So let's save. See, you can see here, ice cream, Amul, cool added. Now go to network calls. And here you can see new action method invoke, that is save add -1, and after successful save it is showing like success. And if you go to network calls, see product API call for adding ice cream. Okay, and you can also see the action methods that are indirectly invoking. Okay, so we are successfully done with this also. Let's have some fix here. What is that? Okay, no better. So we are done with our create also. And now finally, let's check the update. So for update also, we have discussed that we are going to use this only, right? So only logical changes. So here in this else, we have to implement update. So to update, what we will do, this dot, okay, product service dot entities dot subscribe. I want to go inside of that data. Okay, what I will do. So here let product to update equal to p dot filter dot id product id equal to product id. So this product id, right? And what we will do next, this dot product form equal to, I will use product to update. Okay, and we should take first one. Why I am not directly assigning means, if I assign this variable directly here, what will happen means This is a read-only immutable object, but on form we have to mutate it. So it will throw error. You cannot mutate a unmutable object. Okay. So that is the reason I am creating brand new object here using the separator. Okay. So that's it. Now form should be populated. So what I will do in the HTML, product HTML, in the table, let's have new column. Okay, like actions. Let's add a TD here. Okay, button. BTN primary. Okay, I will name it like edit, and let's register the click, and that is nothing but this method only, open product model. Okay, and inside of it we need product item ID. So let's check our output whether our form is populating or not. So edit button is here. Let's click. See, I am able to see the data. Okay. Now let's work on invoking the update API call. So go to component. So here in the else. So here this dot product service nothing but entity collection. It will have one more method for update. So for update also we need to pass this dot product form. Okay. And copy this line. Okay. I think that's enough. Okay. Now go here. Let's update our Amol cool ice cream. I will add one more cool in the description. Okay. And now let's save it. Everything is fine. See, it is failing because it is unable to find the URL. That is because we are missing slash before after the products in our URL generator. So make sure to give your URLs more specifically. Okay. Now go back and let's edit and update cool triple cools. See, you can see triple cool. If I reload also, same data will be there. Triple cool. And edit, add one more cool fourth time. Okay, now save and it is reflected. And now check the, see, here is the API call. And it is successful 200. And if you go to Redux, you can see save shared update 1, save slash update 2. Like action methods are triggering in the backend from the our entity collection service. Okay, from this we can understand that everything is taken care by the NgRx data. Okay, and final operation is like final operation is a delete operation. So let's work on delete operation. Okay, so for delete operation, what we will do, we will have a confirmation delete one more model pop-up. So go to Bootstrap model and copy the one more new model. Go to components and go to models. Copy it and HTML. Go down and add this new model. Okay, and I don't want this button and delete confirm my model bootstrap name. Okay, and here title is like confirm delete. Okay, I can write like delete confirmation. Okay, so now in the component, what we will do, we will create a new variable to capture that Bootstrap model instance. Okay, so that is delete model. Okay, any, and in the here this dot delete model any, copy paste all these lines. Okay, and go to HTML and delete confirm, copy the ID and assign it here. Okay, so that's going to invoke the delete. So now open delete model. Okay, it will have product ID as the input value, number. Okay, now here what I will do, I will maintain the product delete ID value. Okay, so product ID to delete. Okay, number initially 0, nothing to delete. Okay, so here just assign to that value start product ID. Now let's open the delete model dot show. Okay, and also on confirming, okay, we must delete, right? So for that, delete, add a method like delete. Okay, and here I can call this dot product service dot delete. To this delete, I can pass my product to delete ID value. Okay, on success, I simply hide my confirmation model. So here my confirmation model is different, right? Paste. Okay, and let's add this open model to delete button. So for that, in the table, let's add one more button for delete. Okay, so copy entire thing, paste it here, make it a danger. Okay, and this is delete, right? And the method is open delete model. Okay, and confirmation delete. So go to last and change the text like confirm delete. Okay, danger, and let's register the click event. Okay, so that's it. I think we are good. Let's test the delete operation as well. So we are seeing delete button as well. So let me delete my newly created ice cream record only. We clicked on delete. So let me click on confirmation delete. See, record is gone. And if you observe here, action method delete also invoked. Okay, like this we need to work all our actions. See, API call. Okay, so there is no action method, there is no reducer, there is no state direct interaction. Everything is taken by the entity collection service that is provided by the entity NgRx data store. Okay, so we are done with all the operations that we can do with the NgRx store. And finally, I want to touch one more topic like entity data service. So what is entity data service means? Entity data service is an instance of a class that implements the entity collection data service. Okay, this interface supports basic set of CRUD operations and returns observable. So it is implements the uh, entity collection data service. Okay, so it can operate on default methods like get, add, delete, update. Okay, so using this entity data service, we can override those functions. Okay, so here we can what is the benefit of overriding means you can give whatever URL you want for get method, or delete method, whatever you want URL you can give, and also you can update the data before storing the data into the store. Okay, so to do that you can override here by using the entity data service. Okay, so let's use the entity data service. Okay, now what I did means I have changed my get API product slash all. Previously it is only product, but now it is get all. Now check the API. If I reload, data won't load. If you go to network, that is because it is calling only all. But my products is product all. But remaining that API call is okay. So now I need to use this API call for getAll method by overriding that method. That can be done by using the entity data. So let's implement a entity data service. Let's create a, so this is I want to override for only products, right? So what I will do, I want to create inside of the product. So ng generate service, okay, shop slash products slash product entity data service. Okay, hyphen flat, so that no new folder will be created. Okay, here is our class. Okay, now it should be extends default data service. Okay, that loads from the entity, and it should pass define the type like our model, that is product model. Okay, now in the constructor you have to inject couple of them and pass it to the default service. Those are like super is expecting HTTP client and HTTP URL generators. Okay, so here also entity name. What is our entity name? Go to entity mapper, entity metadata. So product, copy that name. So name is the key for NgRx data. Please remember that. And next thing is it is expecting HTTP. So let's instruct HTTP client. HTTP client. Okay. HTTP. Next it is expecting HTTP URL generator. Okay. HTTP URL HTTP URL generator. Let's make sure. Okay, pass that answer. Okay, now I want to override only get all method, right? So to do that, what I can do get all. Okay, so I can simply use return HTTP get the type here like product model array. Okay, and I can pass the URL here. Okay, now if I save and I need to register in my module, shop module. Okay, entity data service. Okay, and like the EDS data service, and also inject our newly created product entity data service, right? So Okay, and now data service dot register service. Here I can specify entity name. So entity name is product and the type. So now get call will be taken from here. It won't execute default one. Okay. So remaining also work remaining means let's go to product component. Only get model will be executed from the overloaded method. Okay, get all. Remaining will be executed with old URL only. Okay, so let's save. Let's run. See, now getting data and go to network call. See, we are getting all. See, now get all method. And if you add edit anything, old code will be executed. So let's update to 2000. See, those are working with the products API. These are working with product slash all API. So that is the benefit of the uh, entity data service. So if you want, you can override all the URLs here. Okay. So not only overriding URLs for overriding response also before storing to store, we can override here. So let me finish this demo by overriding some response. So what I will do, I will override like I will make all my prices to 0. Okay, before saving to here like store. Okay, so to do that, so let inject the map. Okay, making it friendly. So it should be products model. Okay, here what I'm doing along with URL, I am also overriding the data. So let's see. See, already it is 0 loading 0. So that is how it's going to work. Okay, so that's all. Everything is deals with what entity server collection is it? Entity collection server and the entity name. Okay, those are the two main key things we need to remember while using NgRx data. Okay, that's all about our application. I think we are completely done with NgRx data with all CRUD operations. Okay, so that's all end of our demo, guys. I hope this video has given you some useful information on NgRx data implementation in Angular application. So if you like my video, please do subscribe to my channel and we will meet you again with new videos. Until then, signing off.